Peter kind of basically outlined major concerns of this agreement. What's interesting here is that I've talked to people from different political leanings and liberal colleagues, for example, in the House of Commons, and I explain this to them, or from the reaction I get, the mail that I had, and most people are concerned. They're concerned because we don't really know, unless it's pointed out what's happening, what is going on. I think most Canadians would like to retain some kind of a control over our way of life. Most Canadians do not want to have what we do, whether it's at the municipal level, provincial level, or federally dictated by the large multinational corporations through what I call our corporate rights agreements. So Peter mentioned that whole issue on drugs. That was an article in the Globe and Mail, the $2.8 billion. I'm not sure exactly where to start here, but I'll try to point in regard to agriculture. This agreement, and I know Peter keeps saying this, is not about trade. We already trade with Europe. In fact, recently this year, there's been an opening of 20,000 tons of hormone-free beef that Canadian cattle producers will be able to ship to Europe. The Canadian Wheat Board currently ships in 2008-2009, Canadian farmers supplied close to 2 million tons of wheat and durum to the European Union market, with sales valued at $714 million. We do trade currently with the European Union. As a matter of fact, our nation has traded before we even had any kind of free trade agreements. So we look then at trade and what impact does this have on our society and our farmers. And before moving in a bit into agriculture, I just look at an article from the Globe and Mail that says the European Union wants a far-ranging trade deal with Canada or none at all, because then it might serve as a precedent for deals with bigger markets. So I get the feeling that they're wanting to test this to see how far they can push our countries. You know, in the past, when we've done agreements, up until the Buy American agreement came around, subnational contracts were not part of the equation. Municipal governments aren't threatened under NAFTA, for example. But they're pushing it to see how far we can go. As a matter of fact, the EU's Trade Commissioner, Karel de Gucht, I think is his name, how you pronounce it, met with Minister Van Loon and said a lot of trade is now tied to investment flows. We want market access, yes, for all our investments. So they're pushing, and they're pushing hard. So when it comes to agriculture, we've seen how trade agreements have affected some of our farmers. We've seen what's happened under NAFTA to fruit growers in the Okanagan and vegetable growers, who now, many of them have to plow up their fields and cut down their apple trees because they can't make money, because we have this free flow of apples, and specifically coming from Washington State, that are subsidized by the American government, putting our farmers out of business. According to the National Farmers Union, and this is corroborated in a meeting that Peter and I had with the dairy farmers of Canada, that supply management, although our government, to its credit, is saying we're protecting it, however, it is on the table. And you know, the whole issue of cheese, the Europeans want a market, our access to our cheese market. And you know, what's to stop them at the last minute saying, okay, we'll sign everything, but we'll throw in our cheese? If that happens, if supply management is somehow whittled down, if they get more access to there's right now a 7 or 5% quota that other countries can ship tariff-free without over-quota tariffs. If that happens, then each Canadian dairy farmer stands to lose $70,000. Even if supply management stays, but it's just watered down a bit. So that's an impact on the pocketbook of dairy farmers. Peter said the government will use CETA to cripple the Canadian Wheat Board. Our government would like nothing more than to get the Wheat Board out of the control of farmers, and they can do it through this agreement, because other countries do not like our Canadian Wheat Board. They see that it's strong and competitive on the international market, and they would very much love to do away with it. Ironically, someone who's been fighting against the modified crops and GMOs, our GMO crops would not get access to the European market because we're seeing a movement there which is stronger and stronger against GM crops. So our farmers could be hurt there. And of course, Peter talked about the risk of contaminated imports increases as import certificates from EU countries must be accepted without regular audit or inspection. Those are some of the issues. This is an important issue, this trade agreement. It's not some little agreement with the country. It's huge, and it involves our fabric as a nation. And I would urge all of you to talk it up, to talk with people, because we need to stop this agreement. So thank you so much.